Hello, YouTubers, and welcome back to another episode of the Grandstand here on the Patriot Education Network YouTube channel. I'm, as always, your host, the Patriot. And for today's episode, we are going to be talking about the latest terrorist attack from the left on the Michigan church that happened about probably 8 hours ago, give or take now. There was a church in Michigan. It was a Church of Latter-day Saints this morning that was rammed into by some lunatic leftist nut yet again, who then opened fire on the people inside of it, killing at least 2 of them that we know about. And I believe there was either 9 or 10 injured on top of that. I haven't checked out the actual rest of the information just yet. Right now is what it is. We're going to go together here. And then, of course, he proceeded to try to set the church on fire, of all things. And yeah, it just shows that we have a problem in this country that I've been saying for years now, and it's the attack on Christianity is what it is, dude. You know, everybody wants to talk about anti-Semitism and stuff like that, but the reality of the matter is there has been an attack on Christianity for at least a decade now in this country, if not longer than that. And really, if you look at worldwide specifically, there's been an attack on Christians for at least the past 15 to 20 years is what it is, maybe even longer than that for that matter. So, yeah, there's definitely an issue going on both in America and outside of America where there is hate against Christianity is what it is here. And when you have outside of America, Islamic terrorist attacks happening all the time, where they're going into these places and killing Christians just because they're Christian. And now that you have these leftist nuts, which this could have been Islam, it might not have been Islam, I'm not sure yet. I don't think we have any information about this yet, so I'm not going to confirm one way or another if it is. It wouldn't surprise me if it was, given how big the population of Islamic terrorism is there in Michigan, especially in Rashida Tlaib's congressional district, and that's why she's in office right now. But yeah, there's definitely anti-Christian hate in Michigan for sure, from Islam. And there's also obviously just in general a bunch of Satanist leftists that hate Christianity and Christ in general is what it is here. So I also want to talk about something else that happened here in the last couple of days besides this, because I think this directly kind of correlates to something that happened like a day or two ago, where it was Trump who issued a statement here recently. It was either like Thursday or Friday of this past week, where he basically was declaring terrorism indicators is what it was. And one of them happened to be anti-Christian hate and stuff like that. So I find it very suspicious this just happens conveniently, like right after that declaration happens, what it is there. But yeah, here we go. Yeah, this was Trump's. Where are we at now? Screen share. Yeah, it was Trump's NSMP7 labels. I love how they say common beliefs as terrorism indicators. By the way, these are not common beliefs in many cases. What they are is they are actual communism belief systems is what it is. And it makes sense for them to say common beliefs respect communism beliefs, because that's the whole point. They're trying to, turn our country into a communist hellhole is what it is in many cases. The left is. But yes, this new directive targets anti-Christian, anti-American, anti-capitalism opinions. We don't need to bother reading any of this prelude stuff. We're just going to go right to the indicator stuff. Here's what it is. Yeah, it was Vice President of Secretary of Defense. Did the things. And it was, says in other words, targeting pre-crime. In reference to Minority Reports, what this person claims, the Trump administration isn't only targeting organizations or groups, but even individuals and entities whom NSPM7 says can be identified by any of the following indicators of violence, being anti-American, anti-capitalist, anti-Christianity, support for overthrowing the United States government, extremism on migration, extremism on race, extremism on gender, which those three can kind of like, I would like more information on those specifically on these, because it just, obviously it just says like what they are. It doesn't actually go into like detail of what they really are is what it is. And then we got hostility towards those who hold traditional American values on family, hostility for the towards those who hold traditional American values on religion, and hostility for those who hold traditional American values on morality. So basically, you have obviously America being a white Christian nation originally. That would be one of the things about traditional American values. There is what it is for religion. Then you'd obviously have the anti-Christianity side of this as well, would be another thing in that whole situation. So, but let's go to the AP article I pulled up earlier. Here's what it is, and we'll just read the whole thing. Here's what's going on with it. This is, as far as I'm aware, this is updated to the latest amount, or within the last hour or so. It was 2 people dead, several injured in shooting and fire at Michigan church, police say. It says Grand Blanc Township, Michigan. I'm not so sure that this isn't close to where both Duke and NEA now live, is what it is. So, anyway. So they gunman opened fire inside the Church of Latter-day Saints chapel in Michigan during a Sunday service before apparently setting the building ablaze, killing at least 2 people, injuring several others before police shot and killed him. So hundreds of people were inside the church in Grand Blanc Township when the 40-year-old man rammed a pickup truck through the front door, then got out of the vehicle and started shooting. By the way, I want to point something on that one. That is very similar to how the Luby's shooting happened in Texas back in the early 90s, was what it was, where you had this dude, he was like a nut or whatever, and he literally rammed a vehicle. I think it was like an F-150 or something like that, maybe, kind of truck, through the entrance of the Luby's cafeteria diner place that is there, and then got out with, I think it was like 2 handguns, or maybe a handgun and a rifle, something like that, and then started bringing fire people there, is what it is. And from there, you ended up having him kill a whole bunch of people. And what was interesting about that one is that directly did lead to pro-gun legislation becoming law of the land in Texas and stuff like that, because one of the women that survived that, it was her parents were both killed in that shooting in Texas there in the 90s. And she specifically became a pro-2A advocate because of that, because she specifically had stated how she had to leave her gun in her vehicle at the time because I believe she had gotten a concealed carry license, but it wasn't like valid to carry in the business or something like that's what it was. And because they created the gun-free zone there, I think she ended up suing them too as well, if not mistaken, as the other people that survived that massacre and the families of people that obviously didn't know what it was. And it was because they created a gun-free zone there is what it is. And this is what I'm saying. Like, I don't understand how in 2025 any place at this point is a gun-free zone when, especially with the psychotic insanity from the left at this point and the terrorism of the left at this point, every house of worship in this country right now, from churches to synagogues, etc., should be like some of the hardest targets to hit right now is what it is, dude, especially schools in this country. And the fact that they're not is just absolutely disgusting. And I want to point something out too on that one, that in the last year or so, and specifically in the last like 2 to 3 years now, you've had Gretchen Whitmer and other Democrats there in Michigan who have passed a bunch of anti-gun laws and restricted people's right to carry into places and things like that. So really, this shooting, as well as every other thing that's happened in Michigan, where it's attacks on churches, et cetera, in the last 6 months or so, because it's not the first attack on a church here in the state of Michigan in the past like month or two. There's been at least, I believe, 2 or 3 now that were stopped in like the past like 3 to 4 months now is what it is now. And this just happened to be the latest one where the guy actually did like, ram the vehicle through the doors to like get in there, basically what it is. And when you have piece of shit anti-gun Democrats like that, like Whitmer, et cetera, in power, who, if you actually do election audits on these states in this country, you can prove for a fact that people cheated their way into office in 2022 midterms, and they should be in prison already for voter fraud. But then you understand, like, everything that they've done since then is all completely null and void under Marbury versus Madison 1803 is what it is, because it's all unconstitutional, which that was never written to begin with, is what it is. The entire point of the matter is they are absolutely committing deprivation of the color of law and restricting people's ability to arm themselves and be able to be safe in their own communities, is what it is there. Because they are specifically stopping them from being armed, and they are depriving them of their rights to the Second Amendment is what it is. And this is why I'm to the point right now. I'm just saying, fuck all gun laws, dude. Like any gun law that restricts your right to carry into places, fuck it. It's not even worth it at this point, dude. Like, okay, you get caught, carrying or whatever, because it's going to be you stopping a fucking mass shooting. Good. Then stop a fucking mass shooting by carrying into a place illegally is what it is. Because enough is enough of this shit. And this is me specifically calling right now in the Ohio General Assembly, specifically Tex Fisher, Josh Williams, and every other member of the GOP right now that we, the network, have called out this afternoon, because it is absolutely ridiculous to not even have the legislation being fast-tracked at this point that could help our own state here in Ohio be able to be a better constitutional carry state and be able to expand out to houses of worship, which is what it should have covered to begin with at the whole fucking point back in 2022 is what it is. It was stupid to even have that as a restriction 3 years ago. And obviously this is before Tex and a couple of people were in the General Assembly. This is back when a bunch of rhino pieces of shit, like old Dick, etc., were in there. And the problem is when you have these rhinos in there doing a bunch of rhino bullshit and watering down better legislation, this is what allows for massacres to happen in the future is what it is then. Instead of just being like, no, we're going to vote it through as it's written, which is how it should have been. It should have covered houses of worship back then in 2022. And just do it that way. Because that's the thing now. Now we have to go back 3 years later and do another piece of legislation now to reenact basically constitutional carry to expand out to houses of worship and other places like that when it should have covered everything to begin with. Like I would say, truthfully, the only place it really shouldn't have covered would have been like an armed courthouse or something. But with the exception of that, it should have covered like everywhere else, including hospitals, which are all obviously another soft target too, for that matter. So, and it's like, just because I want to go visit somebody in the hospital doesn't mean I should be disarmed is what it is, dude. But anyway, because again, like when you're forceful to disarm like that and you're not providing, like heavy ass armed security everywhere, you are opening up that person to end up being a victim of something when they could have easily been carrying and stopped that massacre themselves by being a first responder as a private citizen in this country that has a legal right to keep and bear arms. So, anyway. Going back to the story at hand here, though. Yeah, it said this 40-year-old guy rammed his pickup truck through the front door, got out of the vehicle, started shooting. Police Chief William Rainey told reporters, said police believe the dude deliberately set the building on fire, said after suspect left the church, 2 officers pursued him and engaged in a firefight where they eventually killed him. Flames and smoke could be seen pouring out of the church for hours before the blaze was put out. First responders were then sifting through the wreckage. And it's interesting to me that the truck here had 2 American flags on it. I'm guessing this is the guy's pickup is what it is. Which, again, kind of... I feel like, if anything, if this was like some crazy leftist or whatever the case be, like what better way to like try to spin the narrative than by putting 2 American flags in the back of your vehicle like that. And that's if that's even the guy's truck for that matter. It could have been a stolen vehicle for all we know. So, but yeah, I think it's very suspicious in general that you would have not 1 American flag, but 2 American flags in the back of the truck. And interestingly enough, on this situation, it looks like not even unfurled at all. So that even leads to more speculation of it being just, a bunch of horse shit, basically, and just like a staged kind of a thing is what it is there by some psycho leftist nut. But anyway, let's see here. It continues on, said, we do believe we will find some additional victims once we find the area where the fire was. When the police chief said police initially said that 9 people were injured. Police chief later announced that 1 additional person had died from a gunshot wound at the hospital. He did not say whether that person had been included in the number of injured. And that says motive was still unclear. Said police said that they do not yet have a motive for the fire or the shooting. Yeah, it's called anti-Christian hate, people. It's pretty fucking easy to find the motive. There's what it is. This is investigators searching suspects' residence in nearby Barton So authorities did not provide any additional details on about the suspect, including whether he was a member of the Church of Latter-day Saints, widely known as a Mormon church. So this is the latest of many shooting attacks on houses of worship in the U.S. over the past 20 years, including in August that killed children, a mass shooting at Antioch in Minneapolis. I love how AP specifically omits the fact that that was done by a trans nut at that point, dude. Which I'm not saying that this 40-year-old guy was either, for that matter, some leftist trans nut or something like that. But I don't know, it seems very suspicious to me. And like I said, this just kind of that photo itself, leads to suspicious is what it is. And also the fact they're not even giving race, ethnicity, etc. there for the guy, really kind of makes me wonder if this wasn't some Islam motherfucker or whatever the case be, and is trying to say just it's not an Islam terror attack or something like that's what it is. So yeah, I find it very, very highly suspicious of what it is there. But again, this is one of these things where it happens on a Sunday, so I'll probably know the actual details completely by Wednesday, I'm guessing, because it's usually about 3 days, give or take, after these things happen, that we know everything about this person is usually what it is within. Well, sometimes within 24 hours or so, but usually it's within 72 hours or so, we usually get most information about the people, so it is there. So anyway, so President Trump said he was briefed about the shooting in a social media post. He applauded FBI, who local authorities said are sending 100 agents to the area for responding. Said, pray for the victims and their families. Epidemic of violence in our country must end immediately, Trump wrote. Said church building circled by a parking lot in a large lawn is near residential areas and a Jehovah's Witness church. It is in Grand LeBlanc Township, a community of roughly 40,000 people outside Flint, Michigan. It's a tight-knit church community. The impact spread quickly to neighboring communities, including the small town that shares a name with the township. Said, although we are two separate governmental units, we are a very cohesive community. Said City of Grand LeBlanc Mayor John Cheesy, or Crazy, something like that. So this sort of thing is painful for our entire community, struggling to digest all that has happened. My heart goes out to all those affected families. Says Timothy Jones, 48, said his family is part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints congregation or ward about 15 minutes away, but that his children were at the Grand LeBlanc Township ward that night, the night before the shooting, for a youth fall festival. He and his family moved to Flint 2 years ago in a large part because of how strong the faiths community in the areas are. Says the people in the congregation got word of the shooting from text and phone calls during their own Sunday services. Church went into lockdown and police came as a precaution. That guy said his children were frantically just trying to get word that people were okay. So Sundays are supposed to be a time of peace and a time of reflection and worship. Yet in the wake of violence at our houses of worship across religions, a shooting feels inevitable and all the more tragic because of that. Again, it doesn't need to be that way. You could easily have armed security on staff. You could easily have houses of worship be under the umbrella of a constitutional carry situation. There's what it is. So you could have literally every parishioner that wants to carry in that place, people that carry in that place, you could have 100 fucking people shooting back is what it is, dude. So that's what it should be at that point, honestly. Should just be forming small squads real quick and just some motherfucker comes in there and starts shooting, you got 100 fucking bullets flying back at their asses. That'd be the case then. It's just a hail of gunfire. Some lead salads taking their asses out then. Anyway, continue on here. It says, piece of shit Governor Richard Whitmer said in a statement that her heart was breaking for the community. Violence anywhere, especially in the place of worship, is unacceptable, she claimed. No, what's unacceptable is pieces of shit like you putting gun control in place, bitch, that allowed for these massacres to take place in the fucking first place. And that's why you should be charged as fucking accessory after the fact and before the fact, for that matter. So the shooting occurred the morning after Russell M. Nelson, the oldest ever president of faith, died at 101 years old. That's an interesting thing to bring up on that one. Huh. So next president is expected to be Dallin H. Oaks per church protocol. That is weird that it happened the morning after the the dude who was the president of the Church of Latter-day Saints had died. I don't really know if there's a connection there, but I think it's weird that they put that in the article to begin with, is what it is. So it sounds like the AP is trying to do a connection there or something. So who knows? But anyway, it says church is in communication with local law enforcement as the investigation continues, and we receive updates on the condition of those affected. Doug Anderson, a spokesman for the Utah-based faith, said in a statement, it says places of worship are meant to be sanctuaries of peacekeeping, prayer, and connection. We pray for peace and healing for all involved. It said some striking nurses at nearby Henry Ford Hospital left a picket line and ran to the short distance to the church to help first responders. Said Teamsters Local 332 President Doug Glass said, human lives matter more than our local labor dispute does. Well, at least and that's why there's not as many casualties here, because you had nurses literally 100 feet away or whatever it was at the Henry Ford Hospital picketing and stuff like that. And now they're like, oh shit, go get the tourniquets and everything like that. So who knows? I mean, it's good obviously that they were there to be first responders and stuff like that, but it's also kind of convenient, I think, on that one. So again, maybe it was just kind of God intervention or something like that kind of situation, because there's a lot of things like that when it comes to miracles and things, and that's what people should realize in these situations, is that God does work in mysterious ways. And that's one of the things that you would see, obviously, is something like that happening, where it's it's just these random people are just there that happen to be medically trained to save lives, and they're there to save the lives, is what it is. So, but yeah, this could have been much worse than it was, obviously. But like I said, I think it's interesting the fact that you have that an SPM 7 thing come out from Trump and company that specifically labeled anti-Christianity as a terrorism indicator, and then it's a day or two after that, you then have this attack on a church, is what it is, there in Michigan. And I'm almost wondering, like I said earlier, given the fact that we've had 6 or 7 of these various attacks on churches, etc., there in Michigan, houses of worship, by the way, none of which have to do with mosques or Islam. There's been none of those at all happening there. So it does kind of make you wonder, if this isn't a bunch of Islamic terrorism hitting these Christian churches and Jewish synagogues, etc., there's what it would be. But the whole point of the matter is, it also makes you wonder how much of this is related to the fact that you have gun-free zones in these places because of the Democrat Party, is what it is. And that's really where I'm about with the whole thing, because I feel like there's definitely got to be a correlation there, is what it is, given the fact that you've had so many attacks happening in the thing, is what it is now. So, okay, we actually have an update to this whole thing. Oh, by the way, if those haven't heard, there's actually a hot dog recall as well going on in our country currently. The specific state fair hot dogs you can buy at Walmart's and stuff like that, which I have bought several times since March, and apparently it goes all the way back to March as this recall of 58 million pounds of this stuff, because it could have wood shavings, I think is what it is there or something. And I'm like, have I been eating wood shavings? And maybe that's why I'm having chest issues and stuff like that in the last 6 months or so. But I don't know. If I can get my money back on them, though, I'm definitely taking that shit back as it will be, and getting my cash back as it will be then. But anyway, another thing right here would be, but the latest for this is 2 people dead, 8 wounded in church and fire at Michigan, or shooting and fire at Michigan church. And then, like I said, we got the hot dog recall here. So I'm going to talk about that one for a second before we go back to the updated thing for the church, is what it will be. Because this is just as important, obviously, and affects, people's food supplies, what it would be then. Yeah, 58 million pounds of corn dogs and sausage on a stick products recalled because wood pieces may be inside of them. So 58 million pounds of corn dogs and sausage on a stick products have been recalled across the U.S. because pieces of wood may be embedded in the batter with several consumers reporting injuries to date. This is according to a Saturday notice published by Agricultural Department's Food Safety and Inspection Services. The recall covers select State Fair hot dogs on a stick and Jimmy Dean pancakes and sausage on a stick products from Texas-based Hillshire Brands, which is a subsidiary of Tyson Foods. So this contamination problem was discovered after Hillshire received multiple consumer complaints, the service notes, 5 of which involved injuries. The company later determined that a limited number of these products included extraneous pieces of wooden stick within the batter. Says Tyson said that a corresponding announcement adding that it opted to indicate a recall out of an abundance of caution. Says the recalled hot dogs and sausage on a stick goods were produced between March 17th and as recent as Friday. Per Saturday's recall notices, Tyson, which is headquartered in Arkansas, says the issue was isolated to one facility located in Hilton City, Texas. It says the FSIS is worried about some of these recalled products may be in the consumers' refrigerators and freezers in households across the country. I'm not sure why you'd refrigerate that stuff. You'd be freezing it. So as well as some schools and other institutions, in addition to being sold online and retailers nationwide. Agency noted Saturday these products were also sold at school districts and Defense Department facilities. So consumers in possession of the now recalled State Fair corn dogs on a stick and Jimmy Dean pancake sausage on a stick are urged to throw them away immediately or return them to the place purchase. So I'm guessing it'd be for a refund. But the problem with that is having, the shit to get them refunded is what it would be then. To determine which corn dogs and sausage on a stick products are subject to the recall, consumers should check the product's name, use by dates and other indicators, information published online thing. See, the problem with that is, though, if you have already tossed out the packaging, which I have, it's kind of hard to know, if the shit was recalled or not. So I don't know if I should just toss it or not at this point. I mean, I haven't really had any issues with this stuff, but, it's just me. So anyway, I still don't eat that all the time is what it is, so I don't know. Maybe I just, because it supposedly is in the batter, so maybe I'll just rip off the corn part of the corn dog and then just eat the actual hot dog inside is what it would be then. But anyway, going back to the Michigan shooting / fire. This is updated as of 20-ish minutes ago. It says gunman opened fire inside church. Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Chapel in Michigan during a Sunday service set building on fire, killing at least 2 people, injuring 8 others before police shot him. So hundreds of people were inside the church when a man rammed a 4-door pickup with 2 American flags in the truck bed through the front door, then got out of the vehicle and started shooting. The police chief told reporters investigators believe he deliberately set the building on fire. So the officers received 911 call and were at the church within 30 seconds. That's crazy, within 30 seconds. Killed the shooter about 7 minutes later. That's a pretty long firefight, dude. I'm not going to lie. Says after suspect left the church, 2 officers pursued him and engaged in a firefight. Says flames and smoke could be seen pouring out of the church for hours before the blaze was put under control. Says police chief identified suspect as Thomas Jacob Stanford, 40, from neighboring Barton. It says police chief did not specify a motive at the news conference on Sunday evening. Police cordoned off the street leading to the suspect's home. Says police chief said one of the wounded people was in critical condition Sunday evening and 7 others were in stable condition. So potentially this could be 3 dead and 7 injured when it's all said and done. Hopefully that will not be the case, but again, hopefully this person that's in critical condition can be saved if that be the case then. It says earlier in the day, the police chief said authorities believed they would find more victims once they were sifting through the wreckage and find where the fire was. So motive was still yet unclear. Investigators were searching suspect's residence. Authorities did not provide any additional details about the suspect, including whether he was a member of that church or not. So this is the latest of many shootings, et cetera, et cetera. President Trump said on social media post he was briefed about the shooting and applied FBI response, sending 100 agents to the area, community roughly 40,000 people. We know pretty much all that's what it is already. So see, this was the new information here. We got Brad Seasman, whose home is about 400 yards or 365 meters from the church, told Associated Press that he and his daughter heard 2 rounds of 4 to 5 shots around 10:30 a.m. Then we really didn't hear anything for a while before they left their home to see what was going on. Huh. So it makes me, okay. So you heard somebody shoot like 10 rounds in the time span of like 2 bursts of 4 to 5 shots, is what it sounds like. So I'm guessing that's the gunman maybe, and then it was after that was the cops taking him down. If that be the case then? Yeah, it just seems weird, dude. Okay. Yeah, this is pretty much all the information that we had that was new here. Looks like everything else is pretty much the same as before. Yeah, looks like it's pretty much, that was pretty much all the updated was the guy's name now, and yeah, go from there. I just want to see if there's any info on this guy, if that be the case then. Oh, there's a Stop Trump signs posted at the guy's house. It was 21 minutes ago. Here's what this one says. That one said the Iraq war vet. That first picture, that dude definitely has the fucking crazy eyes going on, bro. That's like some PTSD eyes right there or something. So, see, it allegedly had a Stop Trump sign at his house. Social media chatter claimed. It says one post on X at the house. I guess the address is there. Says Oprah Plaza and X shared purported photos of the house. Reincited the claim that he was a Stop Trump sign. This looks like a different guy, actually. So probably a different dude is my guess. But this guy here is saying the guy was a registered sex offender. This looks like a different dude than that guy. So, yeah, that's the problem. It's hard to know, man. Again, this is stuff that we're probably going to know for a fact in like 2 to 3 days is my guess, if it was the case or not. So we're not going to speculate, but the only thing we will do is we will go to this New York Post article here that was talking about the guy being an Iraqi war vet, which again, it might have just been some PTSD nutter, if that be the case, dude. Who the fuck knows? Or it could have been some dude that became an anti-Trumper over the years. So, he's a deranged madman who killed at least 2 people and wounded 8 others at Michigan Latter-day Saints Church. This 40-year-old Iraq war vet who served in the U.S. Marines, Post claimed, rammed his Chevy Silverado truck into the building before opening fire on worshippers on a Sunday service. Stupid thing. Let's see. Sunday service. So the vehicle had 2 large American flags behind the cab and a set of deer antlers attached to the bumper. Oh, this is a picture of the guy. It looks like probably his son or daughter getting a duck. Sad situation, man. Okay, Facebook post on his mother, by his mother, says gunman who died at the scene in the shootout with cops served in the Iraq war between 2004 and 2008. Said he was killed minutes after the 911 call came in. The Department of Natural Resources officer and local township cop responded to the scene in about 30 seconds. Interesting that there was a DNR guy out there, of all people to respond to that. So you had like a local PD dude and then a DNR guy that were both there at the time within half a minute. Variation. So you got pictures of the truck. So the authorities later confirmed that he was from Barton, Michigan, is a lone suspect. Source of the blaze was not immediately known. Sources told Post that the authorities found IEDs on church property. Yeah, makes sense given that he was an Iraq war vet. Said bomb squad was also searching his home. Said cops said that there were hundreds of worshipers inside the church when the attack happened, with aerial footage showing a huge plume of black smoke rising from the structure as it burned. Social media accounts believed to be connected to this guy show he's a family man with a wife and young son. See, that's what I think is even weird about that one. So, like, did he just, like, snap or, like, what on that one? Because that just seems very, very, very weird. So you got a dormant GoFundMe page in 2015 raised more than $3,000 for the couple's now 10-year-old son who was born with congenital hyperinsulinism, or CHI, a rare genetic condition where the pancreas releases too much insulin. Says pictures from the dude's Facebook page show the family smiling, posing in bed. Beds of pickup trucks or on a field and tall sunflowers. This is unnamed witness told Fox 2 Detroit the attack started at about just after the congregation's hymn. When hundreds of people were inside the church about 10 a.m. service, churchgoers reportedly heard a loud bang as the attacker crashed his truck at the church. It says Paul Kirby, 38, who also ran outside to render assistance, believing it was an accident, told New York Post. He saw the man getting out of the truck from about 10 to 20 yards away before he realized what was happening. Started shooting at me, Kirby said, saying a bullet whizzed through a nearby glass door, clipping his leg with a piece of the shrapnel. He said then rushed inside the church to find his wife, 2 sons, before they fled through the back of the church and loaded as many people into their vehicle as they could before speeding away. Well, good for those people for at least, getting like a shitload of people out there too, for that matter. This is Grand LeBlanc resident Tony Deck told USA Today that he drove by the church after hearing sirens and saw at least 4 yellow canvases over dead bodies. There's a picture of this dude, I'm guessing, when he was in the Marines back in 2004. I gotta say, though, even looking at that picture of him in the Marines, that guy kind of has, like, the crazy eyes going on then. It is what it was. So, am I surprised that this was, like, some fucking nutter, potentially? Not really, honestly. Again, it could have been some dude that had, like, PTSD issues and then just fucking flipped out. That is what it is. So detectives probing whether the mass shooting and fire have any connection to the death of longtime LDS church president Russell M. Nelson, who died Saturday at Salt Lake City at the age of 101, according to a source briefed on the information or investigation who spoke to ABC News. I mean, maybe, but, like, would this guy have been part of that church? That's what I feel like the key issues that we're missing right now. What it is like, was the dude who opened fire on this church being, that was a younger picture of the guy, being this guy right here, who was the dude. Like, it makes me wonder, like, did this man, like, was he part of that LDS church or not? Or was it a situation where, potentially it was like anti-Christian hate? Or was it like a PTSD issue? Or was it like a bunch of different issues altogether is what it is there? So, like, it's really, really hard to say. Again, it might, for all the fuck we know, this could have obviously been something where it was just like suicide by cop, essentially. And the dude just did like a bunch of shit. The suicide by cop is what it is there. Because he'd have like PTSD issues or something like that. So, I don't know, man. It's just, it's heartbreaking, honestly. It really is, because now you have 10 people whose lives got affected forever on this one, because you have at least 2 people that are already dead now, potentially a third that's in critical condition that could die right now. And, their families, obviously, at least 2 of them have obviously lost loved ones already, is what it is now. potentially a third could be losing their loved one too, for that matter. And for what? Because some dude like had a fucking, war flashback or some shit like that's what it is. So who knows, man? I'm saying war flashback because I have no idea if that's what it was or not, honestly. But it's just a sad situation all the way around. And really, on this situation, it kind of leads me back to thinking, was this more big pharma stuff, or potentially was this an MK Ultra attack, for that matter, even, where it was them just activating, an agent from like 20 years ago or some shit like that. Who knows, man? Because I feel like a lot of this stuff that we're seeing now is definitely like relating to MK Ultra, mind control and things like that is what it is there. So it could have been something like that, even for that matter. But again, it could have also been that this guy was just fucking nuts in the head and then finally just said fuck it. So again, that's the issue when it's like so fresh right now, only being about 10 hours ago, give or take, maybe 10 hours ago now that this happened. So we're not even sure like every information that's out there right now is what it is, and it's people just speculating, and it's more speculation. That and this is the problem when it comes to the mainstream media entirely, is because they will sit there and because they're a 24-hour news cycle constantly, they'll just spew and espouse this shit like constantly, where, it doesn't matter if they're right or wrong at the time. It's just like, oh, I just need to be first is what it is there. And because they want to be first, they'll straight up lie in a lot of cases about what the actual shit's happening is what it is there. Or they'll put out like false information is what it is then. And they just never retract that original information is what it is. And people believe that to be the case the entire time is what it is. And it very much is like biased speculation is what it is in many cases by the media, and it's why they should be held criminally accountable for this kind of stuff, because it's like, no, don't even say anything about it if you don't have the actual information. There's what it is, people. Like, wait a couple hours for the more information to come out or whatever the case be, and then report on that is what it would be then. If nothing else, just do like a snippet at the time when it happens and be like, yeah, some dude opened fire on a church in Michigan. Like, that's what they would have had to say at that point, honestly. And then it'll be like more information pending when we have it from the cops or something like that. That's what it'll be then. So it's hard to say, man. It's a sad situation all the way around, like I said, though. And again, this is why you got to be armed at all times, man, because you never know when some fucking lunatic's going to walk in and start to kill you and your family. Is what it is then. Whether it be some Islamic terrorist, whether it be some PTSD Marine from the Iraq War, or whether it be some fucking piece of shit YN with a stolen Glock on the street or something like that, then, you never know, man. And this is why you should always be armed when you leave your place, is what it is there. It's like today, I was supposed to get a Amazon package in, and the stupid motherfucking driver, and mind you, this is like, I think I've had like 60-something packages delivered here at this point, so they should know my address by now is what it is. And they should know, like, yeah, it's this, second one in the complex is what it would be then for the housing units and stuff. But instead, in putting in on my stoop, they put it on the first housing unit that shares the same letter with mine. They put it on their front door is what it is there. And I'm just like, dude, what the fuck? So I literally had to put on my pants then, go outside of my place, walk around through the parking lot over there, go over to their place, knock on their door a little bit, and then just grab my stuff is what it was. I don't think they were home at the time is what it is, because nobody answered the door. So this is the second time it's happened now. This is the first time Amazon is fucked up like that, though. The first time around it was UPS doing it there. And I think it was just a lazy driver not realizing, like, hey, there's multiple, units that share the same letter. It just happens to be that was not the one that you're supposed to leave it at there. And I'm almost wondering if this is a new driver, too, if I'm not mistaken, because I could see that being the case, where it's just some new driver or something for Amazon that was like, oh, well, this says it's this unit number or this unit letter or whatever the case, just leave it here is what it is. And it's like, no, dude, you walk around the friggin' complex to the next unit that has the same exact letter, and you drop it at the door that it's supposed to be dropped at. So, but yeah, I was going to do a Slicey Boy Saturday/Sunday stream here in the last day or so. Never got a chance to do it. I've just been so tired is what it is. And the only reason I'm doing this one, obviously, is because it is breaking news. It's happened today is what it is. I assume we'll talk more about this tonight in Honda's chat. But I just wanted to get it out there. So, and also get that recall out there too for anybody that has used the Jimmy Dean sausage on a stick products or has any of them state fair corn dogs in their possession. Like you might have like wood chips and stuff in your batter of those things. So yeah, not good, man. But yeah, my heart does go out though to the people there in Michigan that lost their loved ones today. You should never have to have that be a situation, especially when you're literally trying to worship, God and Jesus, etc. there. And it's ridiculous that we have gun-free zones in any house of worship at this point, or school, or anything else for that matter, because piece of shit motherfuckers want to make political decisions that they have no legal right to do in the first place because they're actively denying your right to carry is what it is there. And yeah, it's time for people to just step up and say, fuck you, fuck your stupid gun laws. We're going to save our lives if something like this happens to us in the future, and be armed at all times is what it is there. And it's time for people to start carrying constitutional, even non-constitutional carry states is what it is there. So anyway, but that's about it for today. I will see you guys in the next one. I'll probably do a special Tactical Tuesday or Tactically Cool Tuesday to make up for today's and yesterday's lack of Slicey Boy episodes. So, but anyway, other than that, that's the information I have for now. I will be back with another Grandstand, probably, depending on how much information we get out of this shooting here in Michigan today, in the next 48 hours or so. It'll either be Tuesday or Wednesday. I will do an updated Grandstand then with the info at hand is what it'll be then. So, but yeah, it's just a sad situation, like I said, all the way around. And that's even more disgusting when you see these anti-gun Democrats try to be like, oh, we're so shocked and sorry that this happened. It's like, no, you're not, because you were the ones that fucking let it happen, bitch. Like, your fucking bullshit, unconstitutional, gun-grabbing antics and anti-gun laws that you put into place specifically led to shit like this. And it's exactly why these fucking pieces of shit like Whitmer, etc. need to be charged with these crimes after the fact, dude. They need to be considered accessories before, during, and after the fact of these fucking massacres, because they're taking place when they should not have to be able to take place at all, because you should have had pro-gun legislation passed across the board that allowed people to defend themselves and not be victims of this shit in the first place. When you have literally, I think it's like 97.8% of all massacres and every other shooting for that matter happening in gun-free zones across this country, there is a correlation and a causation there, and it's obviously things that should not exist in the first place is what it is. And that's why this country should be way more armed everywhere. And I guarantee to have way less people try and pull this shit if they knew everybody was fucking armed everywhere is what it is, dude. When there's going to be a hail of gunfire coming back their way if they try to start the shit is what it is there. So I do commend, though, those two guys that were obviously local PD and the DNR guy that were there within a half a minute then. Because I believe truthfully that's probably what stopped a lot of this from going worse than it was, because it's just like what happened there in Dayton back in 2019. It was the Dayton police were patrolling that area, turned the corner, and then obviously this piece of shit that did that massacre down there at that bar district specifically opened fire. That's what it was. And within half a minute, you have the cops flipping it back around and come back around the corner, and then they basically engaged that dude, and it was them killing him not long after that is what it was. Unfortunately, you still had 9 people or so lose their lives in that situation. Like, I think it was like 20-something others ended up getting injuries and things like that, which, given that both the cops and the gunmen in that case were all using ARs, it's hard to know, if the cops didn't shoot a 223 or a 5.56 round through one of the victims, or if it was the gunman himself, if that'd be the case then, that killed everybody. So I don't think we'll ever know the case on that one. But, again, it's unfortunate that when you have firefights between a criminal like that and the cops, that sometimes innocent bystanders get caught in the crossfires what it is there. So, but yeah, something definitely needs to be done here, and I believe what needs to be done is it's time for Trump to step the fuck up, and it's time for every person that is currently in Congress to get off their fucking ass and pass pro-choice legislation, specifically a nationwide constitutional carry law and a nationwide stand your ground law. And the constitutional carry law needs to be everywhere in America, including houses of worship, hospitals, etc., because no place should be a gun-free zone anymore, unless it would be a place that has armed security everywhere in it. And even then, you should still be able to technically carry in there. But yeah, enough is enough of gun-free zones. It's time to ban gun-free zones in this country to protect the American people and allow us to protect ourselves from insanity in this nation is what it is there. And that's about all I need to say about the end of the day. Hope you guys enjoy this stream. I will see you guys in the next one. Hopefully Honda will do his chat tonight, which if he does, it'll be probably like 10:30, something like that would be my guess. So it'll be about 3 to 3.5 hours from now. Other than that, that's pretty much it for me. Always be carrying, always be armed, always be ready, because you never know when some psycho lunatic is going to try to kill you and yours. And it's up to you to be your own first responder at this point. Peace out, y'all. Stay safe. Later.